On today's Rice Report, I am joined by Brock Pierce. He is a former child actor that some may know as young Gordon Bombay from the Mighty Ducks franchise movies. He is also an entrepreneur, a crypto advocate, and a philanthropist. And he just so happens to be running for President of the United States of America. I'm going to have links down below for Brock's campaign site so you can check that out for yourself. But before we get into it, if this just happens to be your first time ever watching any of my videos, I do encourage you to explore my channel. Make sure you're subscribed, smash that like button, hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with my videos as they come out. Be sure to check out my Patreon channel where I put up exclusive content and it's a way to support what I do directly. Follow me on Library where I post up extra videos. Be sure to check out my audio podcast, Rice Radio, hosted on anchor.fm and available on every major podcasting platform at Rice Radio. I've also recently partnered up with Money Metals Exchange. If you go to moneymetals.com, you're a first-time buyer and you buy $100 or more and you use the promo code RICE, you'll receive a free half ounce of silver, and it's another way to support the channel as well. I'm going to have links down below for everything I just mentioned as well as everything we talk about today, and we're just going to go ahead and get right into today's report. Really quickly, before we start, I just finished doing my interview with Brock Pierce, and he was traveling on his bus while he's promoting his presidential campaign. So a couple times we had some issues with Wi-Fi and his audio was low. I'm going to do my best to make sure I fix that in the edit, but I just want to let everybody know before we get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, joining me today is former child actor, entrepreneur, crypto advocate, philanthropist, and now running for president, Brock Pierce. Brock, thanks for coming on the show today. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm in the back of a tour bus as we are campaigning across the country. And so I am in Idaho right now on my way to Utah, specifically to the city of Eden for this evening. And I will be in Salt Lake City after my dinner. And then the tour continues.
Well, honestly, Brock, I appreciate you taking the time to do this interview. I know that you got so much going on with running for president, so I do appreciate that. We've known each other for a couple of years, and I appreciate your time, and I thank you for what you're doing on the campaign. I think it's a really interesting campaign. And so my channel, I've been branching out over the past couple months, and I've kind of gotten a little bit out of the crypto echo chamber. I'm still covering cryptocurrency, but I've got a lot of people who aren't really very familiar. So aside from the fact that you're a child actor playing in the Mighty Ducks and also the first kid, how would you describe who Brock Pierce is to somebody who might be unfamiliar?
Well, I'd start by saying someone that cares, someone that has done a lot of things, arguably impossible things that have never been done before. I measure my success in life by the positive impact I have. I don't measure my success by what I have, but by what I give. And I can summarize why I'm running for President of the United States of America in one word: love. Not a word you're used to hearing in the context of a political campaign, but I'm running because I love this country. I love the American people. I believe in us. I have faith in us. And I am deeply, deeply concerned about our collective. Right now, this doesn't feel like the United States. It feels like the divided states. Politically, racially, economically, religiously, while simultaneously facing existential threats from environment, technology, pandemics, conflicts with other nations. I mean, if ever there was a time for us to start doing something different, I mean, it certainly feels like now. This feels like the 11th hour. I think we're doomed if we don't do something different. I'm ready for change. Are you?
Yeah, I'm beyond ready for change. And even, with what you're doing, there's things that I've been trying to do with friends that I've been gathering with, trying to figure out what we need to do as we, the people, uniting. Because I mean, it's great when you got people like yourself and others that are trying to run for president and bring about change, but it really takes the consent of the governed, the consent of the people. And we, the people, we can change the world if enough people realize that we have that power in us, but we have to be united. It's united we stand, divided we fall. So, and I know that that is part of your campaign, the Together We Rise. So it kind of has that unity aspect, which I really like.
I mean, your point is so on point. 43% of eligible voters are not voting because they don't feel their vote or the voice is being heard or matters, or they're just not enthusiastic by the two choices they've been given. And 30+% of us are registered. Republicans are generally not happy with their political parties, which means we are the majority. We are the silent majority. We can start to change everything the moment we wake up to the truth. The truth being that we are the majority. As we stop being divided between red and blue and become united, we have the power to create the future in which we all want to live. By whatever consent we choose, we the people have the power. As long as we wake up and start to vote our conscience, as we start to do what we believe to be right, as we stop being convinced with fear tactics that we have to go this or that, vote your conscience, get involved. The future is going to happen to us or with us. What kind of future do you wish to create?
That's great, man. I love that. It's very inspiring. I wanted to ask also how it came about that you got to be running with the Independence Party of New York, and how you went about choosing your running mate, Carla Ballard.
Yeah, so I'm running as an independent of political parties. Normally, if you want to run for an office, you have to join a political party because they've got the infrastructure, the experience, and the tools to run. Now, the quid pro quo of getting that support is you have to accept their ideology and you have to accept their policies. And you have to basically tote the party line, meaning you're not allowed to think for yourself. Your opinions are not really welcome. You have to accept the control of the political party. That's the deal. Now, they prefer that you literally have no opinions, that you just literally speak the party. And so I think that's part of the problem in the country. So I am running as a true independent. On most of the ballots, we did the work ourselves as the campaign, collecting petitions and signatures in the midst of COVID. And when we announced our run, or I announced my run on July 4th, Independence Day by design, an auspicious day as we attempt to create a political movement to deliver us independence from the duopoly, real independence, a government of, for, and by the people, which we can get into. So I wasn't going to run in New York because New York basically doesn't believe in democracy, or they're allowing the democratic process to be thwarted and undermined. So normally in New York, you need 15,000 signatures, petitions, to be able to get on the ballot in New York. The governor of New York, in April of this year, in the heart of COVID, as New York was getting hit harder than anywhere else in the world, what would you do if you were governor? You might lower the signatures, knowing people can't go door to door. You might say, hey, let's test electronic signatures, right? That seems like a good idea for safety. Or maybe you're just too busy and you do nothing at all. But no, New York increased the number in April from 15,000 to 45,000 to thwart every candidate and the years of effort to ensure that none of them got on the ballot. And you think that's enough, but no, they passed another rule because political parties, third parties, if they had a certain number of votes in the last election, have the right to put someone on the ballot. And so the governor said that if you put a candidate on the ballot for this presidential run, and they don't get at least 130,000 votes, or 2% of the population, your political party is forever disbanded. You're out of
Wow.
business. You're no longer allowed to operate. Like, talk about the undermining of democracy or the democratic process. And so the Independence Party of New York was afraid, going, wow, I think we need to change and be put on life support. And that's what everyone in New York did for the most part. But after meeting me, I mean, they specifically, they said, Brock, you're Neo. You're like the one we've been waiting for. We've never seen a candidate so capable, so perfect for the moment. They're like, literally, their words after like we met is like, if we had to design a candidate for this day and age in a laboratory, like, you're what we would design. Someone that can like public speak, that has been an entrepreneur, that's built businesses, that's been on the forefront of innovation, that understands technology, that is youthful, a pandemic president, someone that is of the age that like is relevant, that connect with both, someone that bridges and resonates with left and right, someone that can bring unity. They're like, Brock, we want to endorse you. We want to endorse you as the candidate for New York. As the candidate, we want to nominate you for the Independent Party of New York, the Independence Party of New York ballot. And so I said yes, and it's been an amazing thing. The same thing has happened in Hawaii. We were offered the same thing in Florida, but the lawsuit in Florida with the Independent Party, they lost. And so they lost their ballot access. I mean, I can tell you this system is rigged.
Oh, yeah.
This system is rigged to prevent anyone that is not part of the I can tell you from the inside, like, I can point out, like, this is what New York did, this is what's going on here. In Los Angeles, it is not considered an essential business.
You locked up
because of COVID, you are not allowed to work.
Can you repeat that? Your Wi-Fi locked up for a second there. No, it's okay. Just so people know, you are traveling on a bus and you are making time to do this. So we'll deal with it, man. It's all good. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for your patience and understanding. And so Los Angeles decided that this political campaign, not ours, all campaigning, this entire election, democracy itself, is not an essential business. So during their COVID lockdown, they said no one is allowed to work on their campaigns, no one can go into offices, no one can do anything. And we had set up an operation in Los Angeles. We had to shut it down and move everyone out because they don't believe in democracy. Literally, it's not an essential business. Obviously, the beneficiaries of that are the incumbents. Everyone in office is basically almost guaranteed to get reelected. And so when you're in power, you make it so no one else can really run a campaign and can't talk to people, can't raise money, can't even work. It's horrifying what's happening in the country right now.
I didn't know that about California as far as like.
Well, this is just the city of Los Angeles.
The city of Los Angeles. Okay, that's still very interesting. I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, but so do you think that with you announcing the run on July the 4th, and here we are about a month away from elections, do you think you're going to have a chance this go around? Are you doing this long term? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm 39. I turned 40 in November, which means that this is just the beginning. We are laying the groundwork. We are putting in place the infrastructure for the future, specifically 2024 in the context of my running for president. But it's also not about me. All of the infrastructure that we're developing right now is for you. If you're interested in being a civil servant, I am looking for 100 candidates to run up and down the ticket in 2022, local, state, federal, city councils, mayors, state senate, Congress, up and down the ticket, because I believe we don't need another third party. There's plenty of those. We would benefit greatly from a third major party. But what we really need is a platform, a major platform that can enable candidates free of the control of political parties to directly represent the constituents they're elected to represent without a political party telling them what to think. And I'm looking for civil servants, doctors, teachers, business people, entrepreneurs, engineers, computer scientists, farmers, artists. I'm looking for people that are interested in being civil servants, like stepping up to serve because they care, that operate with integrity, that have values and principles, that are honest. And if that's you, I invite you to reach out to me on November 4th, because the day that we're done with this, off we go. Because we don't need that many people in office. If we get 10 congressmen in office, congresspeople, if we get 5 senators, that is enough to force the left and the right to deal with us. And when we're not a political party, they're going to be like, oh, we talked to Brock, isn't he the guy? And, we cut a deal with Brock. I'm like, they don't report to me. There's no deal here.
Right.
It's like you got to go deal with each and every one of them yourself, a government of, for, and by the people. And they're going to be like, what? But what, they want money or they want power? No, they're there because they care. And you have to deal with each and every one of them individually, engage in conversation, and they're all going to be different, hopefully, and hopefully all show up and maintain that integrity all the way through. But let's get to this election. There are 33 days, just less now, left in this campaign. And the question that I'm always asked by, the people that are really involved in politics, they're like, why are you doing this? Everybody's always comfortable with why.
Yeah.
And the what. And they're like, but why now? What can you possibly accomplish between July 4th, and Election Day? I said, well, did you know I don't have to win the election to become president? And they're like, huh? And these are like political experts, strategists, the top in the country. They're like, and I have enough credibility that they're like, okay, this like gamer of a guy that like, like a hacker of sorts. Okay, tell me, Brock, how does it work? I go, well, our election, to win in our general election, you need to win a majority of the electoral college vote. Keyword being majority, meaning if the two parties were to tie, no one wins. This is what happened in the year 1800, Thomas Jefferson versus Aaron Burr. Carla Ballard, my vice presidential running mate.
Yeah, I lost you there for a second. You were talking about Carla Ballard?
Okay, yeah. So Carla Ballard is a fifth-generation descendant of Aaron Burr. The last time we had a tie was in the year 1800, Thomas Jefferson versus Aaron Burr. Anyway, also, if a third-party candidate like myself, if I were to win one state, not only would we make history, and would that tee us up for 2024, but it's possible in a close race that no one would get a majority. If we were to win 3 states, it becomes likely that no one will get a majority, meaning no one wins the election. So what is the goal? To lay the groundwork for the future, to deliver an important message of love, hope, unity, and with real policy ideas, game-changing concepts, all that stuff. But our home run is if we win one state, it's possible that I would end up in the White House. If we win 3 states, it's very likely that no one will win the election. So the question is, what happens if no one wins? The top 3 candidates are given to the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives, not the Democratic House, then chooses the president from the top 3. And each state gets 1 vote. The District of Columbia gets 1 vote. So there's 51 votes. Whoever gets 26 votes becomes the next president. Every time in American history that this has happened, every time they chose the 3rd place candidate to be president as a compromise. Now, it's only happened once, 1824, but we do have 100% precedent on our sides. And so this strategy, it may not be likely, but it is possible. And every time I explain this to these political experts, they're like, jaw just drops. They're like, this is crazy, Brock. This is crazy. Like, you just presented a strategy that no one has ever attempted, but it's possible. There's like a chance you could pull this off, and this is interesting. And by the way, I don't know if you saw, but Nancy Pelosi, the last 48 hours, this is all she's talking about, the cover of Politico. The race is so close that they think a tie is possible, meaning if we win a single state, the outcome that I just laid out could happen.
That's interesting. I mean, it's a very interesting strategy. So now, I didn't know that about Carla Ballard being a descendant of Burr. Why did you ultimately choose her as your running mate?
Well, see, she represents a bunch of different things. One is she's got a fair amount of experience in, call it, public office. She's got a lot of experience in, big enterprise. She was a senior vice president at Ogilvy and a senior vice president at Participant Media. And she's also been an entrepreneur. So she's very well-rounded. She's very well-spoken. She's also a woman. Not that that matters too much, but I think it's important in these times to design the future that we all want to live in and make sure that everyone feels.
Lost Brock. Again, he is traveling on a bus. Okay, so Brock, I wanted to ask, how is it that you're planning on ultimately restoring the republic and getting the people involved and bringing this era of collaboration forth?
Well, it's not me. Again, it's about all of us. I'm trying to assist and play my part in kicking off a political movement, a political rise above partisan politics, to bring us back to a lot of the principles that our founding fathers had. A government of, for, and by the people, people showing up as civil servants. I know that sounds crazy, but I think that's kind of how it's supposed to be. I also want us to reevaluate how we measure and define our success. I think we should be measuring our success not by growth or GDP. I think we should be measuring our success by life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As a systems designer, it's important to understand what we're incentivizing, and we've been incentivizing growth, just blind growth, which assumes infinite resources. It doesn't differentiate between positive, negative. What if we take a step back and redesign the system and what we incentivize for? What if we incentivize for life expectancy? What if that the end of the free after all? We wouldn't have the most people in prison of any country in the world. It would be the opposite. And what if we started to measure our success by happiness? It's already being done by governments around the world. If we did that, I think we could live in a very different country 10 years from now. And it's up to us to hold our government to account, to elect government officials on that basis. I think we can do this. Are you ready for a movement? I think the time is now. I think our time has come. I think we have to act now. And so I'm here to support you. I'm here in service to you. And this isn't about me. This is about all of us coming together to create the world in which we want to live. And we have the power to do it the moment we wake up and realize it, the moment we stand up and make it so. So be it.
You are a good public speaker, man. I will say that. You're definitely good and very eloquent with your words. And I like it. I like the overall message, and I definitely agree. I mean, it's kind of a parallel path to where I'm at. The time is now. The time, for us to stand together and unite. And all we would be doing is helping someone in a position of power to be able to bring the government back to the people. And I've been researching American history, as hard as it is to dig through and find out exactly how everything transpired, how we became what we are now, how the federal government was able to grow into the monster it is. And you're actually the third presidential candidate that I've interviewed, because I've had Adam Kokesh on, and then I don't know if you really want to count John McAfee as an actual legitimate candidate, but I did do some interviews with him.
He was a real candidate, and maybe not a candidate that could ever win, but that isn't necessarily the only, objective. How do you measure success? He was able to deliver, some very forward-thinking messages, very relevant to what's going on with technology. So I'm in this to win this, not necessarily in this election, but over time. And winning isn't necessarily me.
Right.
It's about us. And
I like that.
We win.
I love it, dude. It's great, man. It's great. And the one thing I do like about you, after knowing you for a few years, is you are very transparent. And so, I mean, I got a couple tough questions, some things you've tackled with other people in the media, but since you're running for president and there's lots of rumors and allegations of child sexual abuse allegations, Hollywood sex scandals, how do you confront those type of questions when people bring up those past allegations?
Openly and honestly, when you run for this office, you're stepping into the ultimate ring of fire. You are inviting everything you've ever done in your life. I've got nothing to hide. In the context of when I was 16, 17, 18, I got sued because I didn't participate in the lawsuit. I said no. So they decided to add me. They subsequently dismissed their cases and apologized to me. You know, the media likes to continue to bring it up and up and up, but you know, that's the facts.
Was it just the one incident with the three people? It
Yeah,
was the company was Den, right? They were suing the founder, and then you got added in as a
yeah.
defendant.
I was 16. And I was a co-founder. I raised $88 million when I was 16, 17, 18 to create YouTube and Hulu and Netflix. We invented that model. We're still credited by everybody. You know, investors were Intel, Microsoft, Chase, Lazard, you know, Terry Settle. I mean, it was the hottest company in Southern California. NBC, we were a unicorn. We filed our S1 to go public. It was the hottest company in entertainment in the world.
Right.
And it was a great learning experience. And the impact of, you know, being falsely accused of something taught me a lot in life. You know, it taught me not to judge people. You know, it taught me to have more compassion, to be understanding, not to believe everything I see in the media. It held me to a high bar, recognizing that everybody deserves a path or a road to redemption, and to give people second chances. You know, it taught me a lot of wonderful things. And it also it took away fear, you know, where I don't care. You know, if people want to gossip and say things that are not true, I had to deal with it.
Right.
And it gave me the fortitude, right? It gave me the determination to like overcome impossible obstacles. And so in the end, it was probably a very good thing for me. Nope, you know, it was a struggle. Probably the most serious one I had to deal with in my life. And it's like, you just like, 2 of the 3 were the adults. It's like, wait, I was the minor in this. The other
I didn't realize. Yeah,
18 and up.
I didn't realize you were.
17.
I didn't realize you were underage. I thought you were overage during
16,
the course of that.
17. I was 16, 17, and 18 throughout the entire period.
Wow. That's crazy. And I know you've been very innovative in a lot of things.
And no one bothers, and people just read headlines. They don't actually get into details. And it's just so sad. You know,
well, when I try,
stop and think, right?
and that's why I wanted to ask you, because when I tried to research it, I was just getting that media bias. I wasn't getting multiple perspectives. I was just getting one viewpoint. So it was really hard for me to disseminate.
Well, if you read, if you read all the press the last couple of years, pretty much all of it says it's not true. You know, pretty much everywhere says I was falsely accused. They want to look at the facts. So the press always does it. They still sensationalize it in the same way they want to say that, you know, I was in Mighty Ducks and that's like all I've ever done in my life and I'm running for president.
Right.
You know? So it doesn't, in the detail of the articles, it normally says, oh, not true or falsely accused or questionable or whatever. He was a minor. The press these days are actually quite fair, but they still like to put it in the headline because it's clickbait.
Right.
You know, it's Mighty Duck Star or, you know, whatever. It's like,
well, that's
about everything I've done in my life. You know, there's pretty cool stuff in there.
I mean, yeah, what you helped to invent in-game currencies and things like that.
I was the main market maker for a decade around the world of all the game economies. You know, I had 400,000 people playing video games professionally for me throughout my 20s. I was PayPal's largest merchant for years. Started the first television channel in China by a foreigner. Launched Alipay, rolled up the world's businesses. You know, tenured professors. And then said, okay, well, now that we've been testing all these economic theories in virtual worlds, I mean, Goldman Sachs came in. I was their main investment in all digital currency stuff back in 2000 when I was 25. Because they're like, Brock, you're managing like economic systems that might be more complex than the planets. They're like, who are you? And I was the first private investment from the black box of Goldman. I mean, all sorts of crazy stuff. And then we decided to take these concepts, these economic theories, and apply them to the analog world. You know, I was founding board member, chairman of Mastercoin. We invented the ICO. Co-founded Blockchain Capital, the first venture firm funding all the crypto companies, the Coinbases, the Krakens, the whatever, all of them. Started Tether, digitized the US dollar. It's doing $10 trillion a year. Started the first crypto bank in Puerto Rico, Noble Bank. Did the first ever security token, BCAP. I mean, I've done a lot of interesting stuff and I could go on for hours. That's just a tip of the iceberg.
Right.
Most of the stuff I've done, I don't even talk about. The only time I mention things is if I was the first. Otherwise, it's like, I'm just, if someone else is doing it, I'm like, why should I bother? Let me just help you. What do you need? How can I support you? You need money, you need connections, whatever. Good luck. Godspeed.
That's a great attitude. And I really appreciate you being transparent with it and explaining a little bit more. And one more question in that kind of area is, and I know it's been brought up, when people are trying to sensationalize your ties to Jeffrey Epstein, what is really all that about?
So that's the really ridiculous one. So I was invited in 2011 to speak at a conference called Mindshift, alongside Nobel Prize winning scientists. I felt like I was invited to a mini Davos, or TED. It was so impressive. This little event, they wanted me to come speak about the future of money. I'm like, wow, I'm moving up in the world. I guess Jeffrey sponsored the event. I'd never heard of the guy. I was speaking at conferences. I mean, you know this. I've been evangelizing and speaking at events multiple times a week for a decade, 2 decades almost. It's like, okay, I showed up to an event and spoke alongside some Nobel Prize winners. I mean, talk about unfair.
It's a lot. I know.
But when you're running for the highest, office, they're going to throw everything at you, everything they possibly can, right? And I'm sure they're going to make up some stuff like, yes, I did speak at an event he sponsored in 2011, right? Okay, whatever. It'll get really interesting when they just start completely fabricating things that have no bearing on anything, because they've used everything they've got.
Right.
Like, they've used everything they can possibly throw at me in the kitchen sink and exaggerated and embellished it to the maximum extent possible. So let's see when they start just completely inventing things that have no basis or any connection to reality as we know it.
It's probably coming. I wouldn't doubt it. I don't know if you can comment on you recently being served on the 14th of September, that subpoena for securities fraud violations. I guess it's a class action lawsuit that you, other organizations, and individuals were named in. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a suit that was 6 months old, that was so baseless, so meritless, that I didn't even bother hiring lawyers, right? And I have plenty of lawyers. I'm like, I'm not going to be a party to this. I'll clearly be dismissed. It's completely baseless. When you're rich, they just like to add your names. And it was 6 months old. That was a complete ambulance chasing publicity stunt to try and make a name for themselves. I mean, it's about as low gets. But, there's some low lifes in this world.
Now, that was the one where like Kraken, Benny Lingham, and a bunch of others were indicted as well.
No, these are civil suits. These are
civil suit. Excuse me, not indicted.
Yeah. These are the people that, like, when you run a public company, they're ambulance chasers. They sue, anyone that has a stock drop. They've sued every crypto company. It's baseless.
Right.
It's meritless enough to the point that I haven't spent $1 on lawyers.
Okay.
That's how much I think of it.
Okay. Now, what about New York State Attorney General, her investigation of Tether? And you're not officially a part of the investigation, but do you have any comments on what she's been, because it seems like a pretty big ordeal what she's trying to make of the Tether situation?
Yeah, so you have to break Tether into two things, right? So Tether was my idea, put the team together, product, boom, boom, boom. But like, I start lots of things, right? I'm like a doula for creation. I typically help get the stew going and the ball rolling, and then I go do the next thing. I know how to operate. I've been an operator, I've been a CEO. I can wear many hats, but I prefer to do the next thing rather than just sit in the seat, try to control everything. And so Tether is one of the most important innovations in financial infrastructure, arguably the most important in fiat since the advent of fiat itself. Certainly one of them. Mm-hmm. It's doing $10 trillion a year in transactional volume. Governments around the world are using this concept of a stable coin that we created, and I have presented to lots of governments, to pilot using technology as a tool to enhance their currencies. China has created the Chinese digital yuan off of that idea that may threaten the US dollar's reserve status. This is a big deal. This is really big deal. Like, this is one of the things that probably qualifies me to be president, maybe more than anything else. How many presidential candidates are talking about the US dollar and what we do to keep the US dollar competitive? Do you think any of them have a clue? How many of them will talk about our national debt? You know, and these are just topics that people will talk about because they don't know what to say. You know, this is an area where, like, I'm the guy, certainly one of them. And so Tether is, I'm so proud of what we've created there. It's one of the most important innovations in the last 100 years. It's massive. Now, I leave companies because I don't try to control companies. So I left the project within the first year. I gave all my equity to my minority partners. My partners and I controlled the company 60%. Gave it all back. I didn't make one penny. I never benefited or made 1 cent from Tether. I have no ownership. I have no involvement in any way whatsoever. The company went on like kids when they turn 18 and leave the nest. They make mistakes and they do good things. Sometimes you're rooting for them. You're like, yeah, great job. Sometimes they do something and you're just like, oh, what were you thinking? And so I'm a bystander observing it. And, you know, I wish they did a few things differently. I wish they were a little bit more transparent. But, you know, when you're doing big things, you know, you can be part of a witch hunt. Do I think they've made mistakes? Yes. Do I think that they'll be, remember, New York is the one going after them.
Right.
Does Tether threaten the traditional financial system?
Right.
Do you think there's lobbyists, behind this? I'd say the answer is probably. Do I have any concerns as well? No. I never made any money, and I haven't been involved. I was never a director or an officer. So, I mean, one of my many babies.
Since you said that, it kind of answers a question that I had, because there's been speculation that some people were saying that you were running for president to avoid any indictments on that very said charge, because Bill Barr did pass some sort of, with the Justice Department, some kind of rule of forbearance in elections that would allow the person running to opt out of being indicted for a certain time period while running. But I guess, with the idea that you're saying that...
I only heard about that on Twitter after the fact.
Okay. You can see where the conspiracy theories would come in, though, right?
I mean, not really. I mean, Tether has a lot of, trolls, many of which are paid, I mean, keep in mind, this is crypto. You know a little bit about crypto.
Just like
troll armies. And, be really careful, what you read, just in general in life. Litmus test of, like, sanity check,
Right.
And keep in mind, does that give you a permanent pass? Oh, really? No one's had that issue, and we're 30 days away from election. Does it make any sense to you at all?
Right.
It's called, all right, let's try not to overdrink the Kool-Aid. Stay off the juice a little bit.
Cool. Well, I got one more real question, and then I'll give you final thoughts, and we'll wrap things up, because I know you're limited with your time. But since you were one of the creators of Tether, the digital dollar idea, and now that we've got digital dollar being pushed in legislation, like with the Banking for All Act, how do you feel about the idea of the pushing a cashless society with a digital dollar kind of thing?
Well, we live in a largely cashless society. So I'm an advocate for privacy, obviously. And so I think cash is great. And I think that cash should continue to be an option for as long as possible. Though we can create digital cash. Remember, technology is a tool. It's amoral. It's not good or bad. How we use it is what matters. China has created the digital yuan differently than I created or would create. And a digital dollar is inevitable. The question is that digital dollar going to look like the one that China's created, or is it going to look more like Bitcoin? Which is why it really matters, because this is inevitable. The US is going to have to use technology to enhance its currency.
Right.
It's going to have to create a digital dollar. The question is, who's going to be designing it? And is it going to be designed in a way that is serving the American people? Or is it going to be designed in a way that is taking away our freedom? And that matters greatly, which is why we need visionary leadership that understands how to navigate the road ahead, that has their finger on the pulse as it relates to technology, because technology is a tool that should be here to enhance our lives, our liberty, and our happiness.
Well said. Well said. And yeah, I definitely, as far as when it comes to government and technologies and going into a digital direction, we definitely need some people in there trying to look out for the best interests of the people, because otherwise it is going to be completely, we're going to lose all privacy. We're going to have complete traceability. People can freeze our accounts, take our money. It's obviously not good. As much as I love cryptocurrency, I wouldn't want to see us live in a completely fully digital world. So Brock,
It depends on how the tools are built and how long until we get there. I think that let's not move too quickly. Let's try to be thoughtful, sensible, apply some common sense, methodical in the work and the things that we do. I have a track record of actually making real big things happen. And if you've done that many, many, many times,
yeah,
of course, people there's gonna be stuff to say, right? You've just literally gone through the list of every imaginable criticism someone could have of me.
Yeah, I know, dude. And I feel kind of bad having to ask you, because I mean, we've known each other for a couple years, but I mean, if I'm doing this and I'm doing this like as a journalist, I feel like I have to ask these questions of you.
Well, hopefully my going on record enough times will eventually mean that question is asked and answered to a degree that we don't have to keep going into that, because unfortunately it prevents us from talking about the present and the future. And that is what ultimately matters.
Well said.
Getting into that conversation as much as possible, but I got nothing to hide. I'm running for president. I am here to
Well, I promise you, if we do this again, it won't involve any type of questions like that. We'll focus on all pertinent questions that are relevant to what I would consider a revolution that is definitely coming, that we all need to be a part of. So, and we have a role to play. Any final thoughts, Brock?
Love is the answer. If you want to learn more, join us at brock.vote. And whatever you do, if you're an American, remember to vote. Remember to vote whoever, whatever. Vote your conscience. Vote your conscience. Trust your gut. Listen to your heart. Don't allow fear to make the decision for you. Love is the answer. So, you want to learn more, brock.vote. Find us on social media. We are active. We are touring the country. If you come through a state near you, please come out. Say hello. Say hi. I'll be in Denver on October 8th for the open debates amongst the independent candidates. I'll be in Cheyenne, Wyoming on October 23rd and 4th for the Independent National Convention, which will be bigger than the DNC and RNC combined in its first year.
Sweet.
I think our time has come. That revolution, that's hopefully more like an evolution, has begun.
Well said, man. And I will have links down below for your website so people can check it out as well. So again, Brock, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview, and I hope people found value, and I look forward to our conversation next time.